This is Ruski Ed with lesson number 29 on Russian nouns. Today we talk about the weather.
You want to learn Russian but think it's too tough, too confusing and all that stuff. Funny looking letters, what's that you said? It's time to learn Russian with Ruski Ed.
The weather is a topic that people tend to discuss quite often, and so it'd be a very good idea for you to know some words that have to do with the topic of weather. So we will begin today by learning the Russian word for weather, which is pagoda. That's right, our first word in this lesson on weather is the Russian word for weather, which is pagoda. But before we proceed any further, let us go over some words that have to do with weather that will not be on the list that you are to learn for this lesson. You can see here 3 weather-related words that will not be on the lesson today. They are snag, which means snow, osadki, which means precipitation, and grad, which means hail. Moving along now, we have the word that means rain in Russian, which is dozhd. Rain in Russian is dozhd. Of course, another thing which people worry about when it comes to weather is how windy it is. And the Russian word for wind is vyeter. Vyeter is the Russian word for wind. Sometimes, of course, it is rainy and it's not that big of a deal, but other times it's really stormy and there's thunder or lightning. The Russian word for thunderstorm is groza. Groza, thunderstorm. Thunderbolts and lightning, very, very frightening me. And of course, another important aspect of the weather is the temperature. Now, the Russian word for temperature sounds very much like the English word for temperature. In Russian, temperature is temperatura. Temperatura. Of course, when there's lots of precipitation and the temperature goes very low, sometimes you will find ice, which of course makes things a little bit slippery. Walking and driving can be a little bit treacherous under such conditions. The Russian word for ice is lot. Lot is a Russian word for ice. 3 letters, lot, 3 letters, ice, even exchange. All right, the phrases. It is time for the phrases. Our first phrase is the Russian way of saying weather forecast. Now remember, a forecast is kind of like a prognosis. So when we say weather forecast, we could also be saying weather prognosis. The Russian way of saying weather forecast is prognoz pogodi. So you can see prognosis, prognoz, pogodi, of course, is a word for weather. So prognoz pogodi. So let's say you're walking through town and you see some white stuff falling from the sky, which of course would be snow, and we know the Russian word for snow is sneg. How would you say it is snowing? Well, it's actually quite easy. It's idiot sneg. Idiot sneg. And we have now come to the end of our lesson on Russian words for weather. So this is Ruski Ed signing off with Das Vidanya!
It's time to learn Russian with Ruski Ed.